We're just about to start the meeting, members, but I'm going to wait until the broadcast is live. I'm just going to give an extra little pause while the live streaming kicks into place. Welcome to the October meeting of Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes Fire Authority. I would like to confirm that this meeting is being live streamed on the Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service YouTube channel. Following the meeting, a recording will continue to be available on this channel, and it is also being recorded should there be any technical difficulties. Before I hand over to the chairman, I'd just like to remind members of 3 key points. Firstly, please mute your microphone when not speaking. Secondly, feel free to turn off the camera function and also turn off incoming video. This may also help if you have a weak connection. If members have a raise your hand function, this and/or the conversation or chat bar can be used to request to speak. The fallback option will be to indicate in the traditional manner. Requests to speak will be monitored and brought to the chairman's attention before inviting a member to speak. For the benefit of viewers of the webcast, Katie Nellis, the Democratic Services Officer, will read the list of members in surname alphabetical order. If you are joining the meeting remotely, please unmute and respond when your name is called.
Okay, Councillor Carroll.
I'm here.
Councillor Christensen.
Present.
Leslie. Councillor Cole.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Exon.
Present.
Councillor Hall.
Present.
David. Councillor Hussain. Councillor Lambert.
Present.
Oh,
Was he there?
Councillor
Yes,
Mallon. Oh, good, Stephen. Councillor Marland.
Present.
Oh,
Councillor McCall.
I'm here.
Councillor McLean. Councillor Mills.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Minns. Councillor Stutchbury.
Present.
Thank you. And Councillor Walsh.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, members, and welcome to Wednesday the 14th meeting of the Fire Authority. We go to agenda item 2, and I'm going to ask for your approval of the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of June. And do you have any comments on the accuracy? No? So if you are, if you wish to vote against or abstain for the signing of the minutes, will you please let us know? Will you please indicate? So
That's Keith just coming in.
So
Nobody's, no.
that's carried, Chairman.
And I'm going to ask, we have exempt minutes, and if you're happy with those exempt minutes and there's no comments or discussions on those exempt minutes, can we take those as a true record so that I can sign those too?
Agreed.
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We go to agenda item 3, which is disclosure of interests and declare any disclosable pecuniary interests you may have in any matter being considered which are not entered into the authority's registers, and officers disclose any interest that they may have in any contract to be considered. Are there any declarations of interest?
Councillor McCall has his hand up.
I just wanted to declare a personal interest in item 4
regard to the Armed Forces Covenant is that I am a veteran.
That's noted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Councillor.
Maybe I ought to, because I'm a family member of a veteran. Thank you. We now go to agenda item 4, which is the Chairman's announcements. You've had those. We've circulated those to you. And I would like to invite Kate Lowell, who is the Regional Employer Engagement Director for Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire and Berkshire South East Reserve Forces and Cadets Association. And she's going to she's joined with us today, and she will talk about the Armed Forces Covenant. Can I hand over to you, Kate?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, lovely.
Yes.
Now, I wasn't sure whether the chairman was actually going to make the announcement. Is this something that anyone is aware of?
Right. It was actually sent out with our update. We did this morning sign for photographic purposes the Armed Forces Covenant. The station command, sorry, not a station command, sorry.
The station commander room.
Yes, the High Wycombe Station Commander, the RAF, signed on behalf of the Armed Forces, and Jason Thelwell, the Chief Fire Officer, signed on behalf of the Fire Authority. And we have some pictures to prove that we've done it, and we were all socially distanced. So yes, I must say I'm really pleased that we've done it. It's another step in the right direction for us. I'll hand over to you, Kate.
That's lovely. Well, thank you very much for inviting me today. As we were saying, my name is Kate Lowell. I'm the Ministry of Defence Regional Employer Engagement Director for Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire and Berkshire. Usually I tend to go around the South East helping people sign the Armed Forces Covenant. We've done it a little differently here, whereas you have signed your own, but I'm just coming along today just to explain a little bit more about it. So from the sounds of things, hopefully the fact that you have agreed to this, you all know a little bit about it, but if you don't, it's regarding how you pledge to, in other words, promise as a local authority that you will ensure that those who have served or are serving are not treated disfairly or unfairly in their day-to-day lives. Since it was set up in 2015, around 6,000 organisations UK-wide have made this commitment. And certainly in the South East, it's lovely to have Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service sign. I know that you work quite closely with Berkshire, Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and also in the south we have Kent Fire and Rescue Service who have signed. So we're really supportive of you, and it's lovely that you are supportive of defence. Obviously the Armed Forces Covenant relies on communities and businesses in the UK to support it, to make that difference. So the pledges that you've made, which includes covering service leavers, otherwise known as veterans, reservists working in your organisation, spouses and partners, cadet force volunteers. These are all people who you help to keep safe and support in the wider community, but also make up part of the Armed Forces Covenant and your pledges. So we thank you for those commitments. In addition, we're really delighted because you've also started your journey with the Employer Recognition Scheme, and you've been awarded a Bronze Award. So what does that mean? It means that you have publicly announced that you are wanting to support defence, and it helps us start a closer relationship, meaningful, sustainable relationship with yourselves in helping to build as a supportive organisation to the Armed Forces Covenant. So I look forward to working with your Defence Point of Contact, Sean Cunningham, and obviously your senior management team as you move forward with your support to defence. I wondered if anyone had any questions that you might like to ask, or perhaps everything's crystal clear, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much indeed, Kate. Are there any questions?
Councillor Stutchbury.
Councillor Suchbury.
Well, firstly, thank you for coming. These covenants, do you monitor how they work, and do you come back and do the assurance at a later stage that the covenant that one signs is actually being enacted? Because so many people sign large documents and then they tend to sit in a drawer and then they're not actually followed up on. That's really key, that you come back and ensure that we are meeting what we've agreed to.
Absolutely, no, you're really right, and that is unfortunately the case with some. What I will say though is that we like to try and review any armed forces covenants on a yearly, 2-yearly basis, so we do try to do that. It's quite hard to do that in the southeast because we've got over 750 just in the southeast alone, and there's only 3 of us to review those. But we do try. But what I would also say is that the ones that we work with more closely are those on the employer recognition schemes. So that's the bronze, silver and gold. So we're regularly in contact with those very supportive organisations. But you're right, it is something that we do try to do, and we try. I mean, it's not a legal document in any shape or form. It's just a pledge, obviously the Armed Forces Covenant. So it's pledging that you're going to be supportive, and even if you're not perhaps actively supportive, as and when you can support, then hopefully that's what it will mean you'll do. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Kate, I understand that you actually present us with a document that we can hang perhaps in reception or somewhere like that to show that we've actually signed that. How long? Well, I know that I've seen one in the council offices, well, Wycombe District Council offices anyway. Sorry, the former Wycombe District Council offices. So I understand that that does happen. So will you be providing us with that?
Well, that's totally up to you. You have a copy of your Armed Forces Covenant, or you should have kept a copy of your Armed Forces Covenant. Is that not the case?
I don't know.
If you
we have. Yes, I think we have.
And I will get you a copy. But yes, you can put that up. Same.
Yes. I think it'd be nice to actually hang in the reception for something like that. And the question I have is, part of this covenant is obviously for the military family, and like it was said, Councillor McCall, being a veteran, you also look after the families, don't you, and the children of the families as well, so they're all involved.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, to a certain extent, it's the local authorities that do that for us on our behalf. But yes, we will work with them to help guide them as to how they can be supportive. But also we look as organisations on the employer side. So there are 2 sides. Some of them are public bodies will look after them as a local authority, and for yourself. But also it's as you as an employer and how you can be supportive of those from the armed forces and the veterans. So, for instance, pledging that you recognise the relevant military qualifications in your recruitment process, and perhaps seeking to support employees who are from the families of. So perhaps you provide them with flexible working. So you can be supportive in all shapes and sizes, and no organisation is the same by any means. So that's why it's important to have your pledges bespoke to you as an organisation.
Thank you very much, DK. Councillor McCall, you've got a question.
Yes, first of all, I think this is excellent, and to say, Kate, I was a member of SEFCA for 13 years, so I know it's a very good organisation. My question is more for the authority than for Kate, is that to me that veterans would be excellent firefighting, potential firefighters. So do we keep any statistics on how many ex-servicemen we have in the force, and is that something we can monitor going forward? Because it would be interesting to see whether that percentage increases now we've signed the covenant, or whether it's going back to Robin's comment about whether we're actually going to action the covenant, and which might increase the percentage of former service personnel in the force. So the question is really for the authority: do we monitor how many veterans we have amongst our personnel.
I'll ask Dave Norris to respond to that.
Thanks, Chairman, and thanks for the question, Councillor. I can confirm that we do monitor colleagues from the armed forces who join the organisation, and indeed we work with 11 Brigade, who are the military representatives for the South East, in understanding how we can best reach out to colleagues within the military who are shortly to leave and recognise this service as a viable employment proposition. We also understand that there is some excellent work done by colleagues in the military to prepare ex-servicemen for life outside of the service, and that the fire service nationally is well known as a preferred employer of choice for those who are leaving the military. So we are up against some fairly stiff competition, I have to say. What I would also like to comment on is that we recognise the value that military personnel bring to our organisation, and we're mindful that of following some of the changes ongoing within military at the moment in relation to the fire and rescue service within the Ministry of Defence, we are likely to see changes perhaps in the numbers of people leaving the military with a firefighting background, and that's something that we keep a close eye on. So absolutely, ex-military staff are very welcome in this organisation. They offer a fantastic contribution to what we do, and we look forward to working with them in the future.
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other further questions? No? Can I say thank you very much indeed, Kate, for being part of our virtual meeting, and we look forward to working with you over many years, and thank you for taking part.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. We also have Station Commander Kevin Mercer, who's joined us today, and he's going to give us an update on the recent USAR exercise. I think perhaps some members might not know what we do with USAR, and perhaps Kevin would actually update us on that. We have quite a few new members, so Kevin, over to you.
Good morning, thank you, Chair. Good morning, councillors and colleagues. Kevin Mercer, Station Commander from Aylesbury Fire Station here. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide you with an overview and a refresh of the USAR capability, but also to provide you an update on the exercise we hosted in Bucks in September. I prepared a short presentation. It should take 10-15 minutes. Any questions, please put your hand up throughout or come to me at the end, but yeah, hopefully enjoy. So I'm going to try and share my screen with you now, if you give me 2 seconds. Hopefully it'll all go to plan. Okay, can you confirm, do you have a front PowerPoint presentation screen in front of you, yeah?
Yes.
Brilliant, okay.
Yes, that's fine, yes.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, this is a presentation on the Aylesbury capability we got in Buckinghamshire, and an overview of the exercise we had in September as well. So a brief background, Urban Search and Rescue Programme was established following the 9/11 attack in New York in 2001. USAR forms part of the government's New Dimension programme, which seeks to enhance the capability through additional funding, which will allow certain fire and rescue services to respond to a range of major emergencies and disasters. Aylesbury Fire Station is part of the national framework of 20 bases for which the people, vehicle and equipment needed to respond at any one time. I'm sure for those that have visited Unit 7 previously, we've got the appliances that are continuously housed in there, although they are out training today. To provide the capability, our service receives circa £820,000 per year from the Home Office. This supports USAR for training, equipment and for the staff as well. In addition to the primary firefighter role for the staff based here at Aylesbury, so they're firefighters you'd see in stations up and down the country, but they also have the additional USAR responsibility and training. Just to give you an idea of the additional skill sets that the staff here at Aylesbury have, they have line access and casual extrication, which is LACE, confined space working, hot cutting, they're chainsaw operatives, timber shoring of collapsed structures, and that's just a name but a few. It's also expected and accepted that our staff can be deployed to assist with a national disaster for up to 30 days if required. The national USAR teams are divided into 4 zones. Our team part of Zone 2, along with West Midlands, Essex, Norfolk and Leicester FRSs. The other 15 units are split between the other three zones. Home Office commissioned a National Resilience Assurance Team, NRAT, who test each service over a 3-year cycle, with the recent exercise being one of those tests. The Aylesbury USAR Technical Rescue Teams attend incidents both in and outside of the county. Notable incidents include, some of you will be familiar with some of these, the terrible incident we had at Didcot Power Station in Oxfordshire. Our crews were deployed for quite a few weeks at a time there to assist with the overall recovery of the 3 workmen who unfortunately lost their life. There was Atherstone on Stow warehouse fire, where again 4 firefighters tragically lost their life, and our crews assisted with the recovery of those individuals. We had the M1 minibus crash, junction fault in the M1. The crews from here assisted with a difficult extrication. And more recently, there was a rescue of 2 workmen that were caught on a roof following a partial collapse in Royal Berkshire. I believe our Group Commander Mould attended that as well. That's some of the more high-profile incidents they've attended, but quite regular, our crews do assist with many animal rescue incidents. There was one that really received quite high praise very recently, where Hampshire USAR capability were off the run, so our crews assisted with the location and safe rescue of a dog that had been buried underground using Delsar listening equipment. On numerous occasions, we've assisted Thames Valley Police with forensic body recovery. We continue to provide support to the ambulance service with the critically ill bariatric patients. This is something we're definitely seeing an increase in activity with. And while all that's going on, our crews do, when restrictions permit, attend a number of national exercises to keep their skills up, but they've also performed very well and brought a number of trophies and medals back into Bucks Fire Rescue Service. One second. The National NRAT 3-year assurance process includes how well we cooperate with work alongside our zone 2 partners and other emergency responding agencies. Our service proudly took the lead in organising and hosting a multi-agency exercise in September at the Westcott Bench Park just outside of Aylesbury. The exercise included our partners from the Hazardous Area Response Teams, HART, South Central Ambulance Service, Police, Disaster Victim Identification, the Air Accident Investigation Branch, and a number of local council officials. We're also lucky to have a member of our own fire authority played an active part throughout the exercise, both as a wounded member of the public and then as an attending fire authority member, where we received a full brief from the incident commander at the time. So the exercise itself, it's 10 to 8, 9th of September 2020. There's a small private jet that's following a failed emergency landing collides with a building. The initial 999 call to fire service reports of a loud bang and smoke issuing from the middle of a wasteland. We didn't want to call it in as a aircraft incident to begin with, because that would naturally attract a high response. The initial PDA for the predetermined attendance was 2 fire appliances and 1 station commander, and these were put on the exercise because of volume of calls that they would have been receiving. Shortly after our crews attended, a major incident was declared with a full USAR group attendance required. Okay, so the following few slides will give you an idea of the scale of the exercise, what was involved. One thing we were quite keen to do for this USAR exercise, which was being assessed from National Resilience, was a lot of USAR exercises in the past have gone from pressing a button for the exercise to start with the USAR being in attendance. We will know that in reality that wouldn't be the case. There'd be that delayed response for USAR assets to get onto the incident ground. There would always be that first responding fire and rescue service that would start setting their foundations for the beginning of the exercises that then be in place throughout the rest of the USAR attendance. Something of this nature would go on for days, if not weeks, but it would always start with that initial first responding fire and rescue crews. The first crews were dealt with approximately 15 to 20 walking wounded casualties with a range of injuries from fatalities to walking wounded. But we had a great deal of help from ambulance service that did put on a really good show for the casualty union as well. So we had some really good makeup on the day, but made it really, really impressive. Those first responding crews definitely had their work cut out. You can see when you got the change in PPE that the orange is for our USAR crews, green is for HART or the ambulance service. The site was huge and it really lent itself to really maximise. And I think the old incident ground itself was probably in the region of 300 metres by 200 metres wide, and we utilised as much of that as possible. This picture shows just before the crews are entering the incident ground itself. The red structure you can see there, that acts as a gateway control. So all crews are briefed prior to entering the incident ground with a clear brief of activities to take. And when they pass through the structure, there is a signing in and signing out procedures that anyone passing through there has a job to do, and they sign in. So it provides accountability from the very, very beginning. We know where our staff are, what they're doing, and how long they've been deployed for. It's an example of LACE there. They're in the process of rescuing a casualty who's gone down a tunnel there. So that shows you LACE in operation, and that's line access casualty extrication. This is one of my favourite pictures because you get instantly an idea of the incident itself with the burnt out car, the vehicles on its side, the plane, the rubble pile, which we had people buried under, that they were okay, don't worry. It gives you an idea, but also we've got HART working. We've got our first responding fire crews doing a casualty removal, and the USAR crews ready to get to work. We're really lucky. We had Air Accident Investigation Branch. Now they're quite busy, but they are a national team, and they played an active part in helping us prepare the exercise, providing black boxes, providing wing parts, and they brought a real inject into it. So should we attend an incident of this nature, we're already familiar with the guys from Air AIB and our other zonal partners as well. There's 2 of the Zone 2 rescue dogs there. So each USAR team, there's 5 in our zone and 20 in the country, as you remember. Each zone has to have a canine rescue dog capability. I'm sure some of you have seen Hugh. We've got Alan Steele, Watch Commander Alan Steele here, and Hugh, who's our Bucks Fire Rescue Service rescue dog. They're out training today, unfortunately. This again gives you an idea just of this is the management side of the incident. If you look further on the top left, that's the incident ground itself. Everything before that red structure you can see mid-screen, everything this side of that, that's all the logistics, all the briefing systems, all the command cells, all the multi-agency briefings were taken on the grass on the right-hand side, which some of our members are involved in. That just gives you an idea of the scale and the amount of equipment, the amount of vehicles that are attended on the day. And again, an aerial shot of the main scene of devastation, if I can call it that. There's another building to the left-hand side that you can't quite see that formed part of it as well. On the first attending cruise, we had multiple seats of fire. The plane was smoking. It was quite a busy scene to begin with. And that's the DVI, Disaster Victim Identification Team. They were really, really supportive from the beginning. They got a great deal out of the exercise. And it's something they really want to get stuck in with again. And I've said it once, but what was good about this exercise was it brought all our zonal partners together, brought Thames Valley Police together, brought DVI together, AIB, HART. Hopefully, we won't need to attend something of this scale, but if we ever do, we know that we've already got that nice working relationship, so we'll be able to work a lot closer together in future. Okay, exercise things. How do we do? The 3 individuals at the top, they were our assessors on the day, and I think at that point they're walking away, hopefully thinking we've done all right. We received some really positive feedback from all involved, from all our zonal partners, from all agencies, that we did put on a good show. We did really well with the planning exercise. We were in a position where Alan Steele and all the crews here at Aylesbury, they'd done so much work on the run up to March, which is when the exercise was initially planned for. So much work was done that we were ready to kickstart it as soon as restrictions permitted. So a lot went into that, and National Resilience recognised that. They were part of the planning from the very beginning. They were involved with all the planning meetings we held, and so we were doing all the right things and on the right track from the very beginning, to the point where we could just put it down come March when restrictions made us, but then come September when we were allowed, we could just pick it straight back up again. So as of yet, we haven't received the official feedback from National Resilience. They have given us some positive comments, and Steve Gadsden, who is the lead for the assessor on the day, he's commented to say that the exercise that we hosted, the Buckinghamshire hosted, is it sets the standards for all exercise in the future, because the planning that went into it, the way it went, and all the crews got actively involved. So although we've not had the official nod yet, hopefully it's coming, and we should all be very, very proud of our performance on the day and the crews here. So moving forward, you may be aware that there's a new dimensions review which is currently underway, and that's there to review the capability of what it looks like, not just in Bucks but nationally. The outcome of this review will feed into the capital asset refresh due to come into effect from 2024. So what does that mean? Well, currently we've got 20 identical teams up and down the country. Everything is the same. You pick up a locker in West Midlands, you pick up a locker in Norfolk, Leicester, anywhere. Everything exactly the same, with the same amount of equipment in exactly the same place. So first of all, do we still need 20 teams in the country? The reconfiguration of teams as well. The 20 teams we have, they're all designed, they're all there as heavy units, so they've got every capability across the full suite. Is there a need for 20 heavy units across the country? Could there be a mixture of light and heavy where, for example, we've got a timber shore in Module 5, which is wood for assisting with building collapses to shore up buildings that are collapsed or unstable. Is that needed everywhere? And then that leads on to a combination of capabilities. So in our Zone 5, do we need 5 lace teams? Do we need 5 abilities to timber shore? So that review will look into that to see how we're doing, what the call rate is, how we're performing, how are we meeting our key performance indicators. So when they look into the future, they'll be able to work out where the assets are required and where they're most likely to get used. Hopefully, moving forward, what we have here in Aylesbury will remain, because I know it's something all the crews here got a lot of satisfaction for. They like the USAR element. It keeps them busy and they have a lot of activity. So from you guys, that's from me. Is there any questions that I can answer? I'm going to see if I can.
First off, can I say thank you very much indeed for that, perhaps in the future we'll be able to arrange a visit for members to attend, obviously mindful of your operational duties and the like, and also socially distanced. Councillor McLean, you were the body, I think, that they had. Would you like to add anything to this? I think it was a brilliant presentation.
I've recovered, thank you, Chair.
Thank
well
goodness.
It was the reason I went was it's on the back of the health and safety visit I'd actually carried out with Dan Cornwell at Broughton a few weeks earlier, and he mentioned this, and it transpired after that I spent the whole day there. I was extremely impressed by that. First of all, the setup, as Kevin has mentioned, there's a lot of effort went into it. When I first arrived in the morning and had a look, and just, as he said, a long way away, 300 metres, there was a pond that was out of sight where there was a dead body in it. Not real dead, but it had to be extracted. And then all the stuff nearby. The end result for me was I left with a lot of confidence that our fire and rescue service and USAR teams therein could play a major part if there was an incident that required a USAR to attend. I just couldn't believe the amount of equipment that came in the containers. It was just, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 of them there, great big heavy vehicles towing them in. I also listened to the banter between the various crews from Essex and West Midlands, Leicester and Norfolk. And they were all, great camaraderie across the teams. And so Zone 2 has got its own little close-knit community as well. One of the most impressive bits, and Kevin mentioned, was the disaster victim identification team that they came down from north of Birmingham. And I spoke to the sergeant he was actually helping an inspector who was obviously new to the job and was learning what to do in the case of being called to an incident. And he just said, I'd have travelled twice this distance to do this. It's the best exercise we've been on. And And in fact, they were so keen that they actually, when they got bodies out of the plane, and they put them back in so they could, another crew could come and do it the next day. I just think it's, I was there till got there at 7:30. Kevin picked me up, and then I left about 5:30. If anyone else is going to go and do an exercise, I would take picnic chair, because it's just standing around watching was tiring for someone who's not used to it. But it was just a whole day of. I was in some ways mesmerised by what I was seeing, the skills that were on show, and the calmness. Okay, it was an exercise, so that there weren't people who were critically ill still in the plane, but I'm sure that's how the teams operate. It's in calm and controlled manners rather than rushing in, except if absolutely. I only saw 2 people run the whole day. That was just to get a ladder. But I think I went round Unit 7 with Kevin the other day, and I think if anyone of the fire authority would like to do that, particularly if they happen to have an exercise running in the Aylesbury Fire Station that day, it's certainly an eye-opener, and we should be very proud of the fact that we have a USAR team, and we need to keep it. And I spoke to some of the guys, and I think USAR, on top of their normal duties, is something they really appreciate. It gives them that extra incentive. So thank you to Dan for getting me invited. And thank you, Kevin, for hosting me on the day.
Thank you, Councillor.
Brilliant. I've got two questions. Councillor Gary Hall, you have a question?
Thank you, Chairman. I think we all appreciate everything that USAR does. Certainly when they come thundering through wherever I am infrequently, you always know there's a lot of drama there because they're going to go to something quite serious. And it's really comforting that we've got that, in the middle of our midst, as it were. The 2024 refresh, I'm conscious that a lot of the equipment will be 20 years old then. I presume that's why they're doing it in 2024. So what's the expectation of, if it carries on, who's going to fund it? Is there going to be a requirement for us to take over funding or part funding, or will the Home Office just fund it?
That's something I'm unable to answer, I'm afraid, Councillor, but I know that will form part of the review. I think we've got some managers in now that may be able to answer that better than I can, but all I can say is that will come out of the review, I'm sure.
Dave Norris will answer that.
Thank you, Chairman. So thanks for the question, Councillor, and it's a good point. So you're quite right, the equipment is approaching 20 years old, and the whole national capability, so of course that includes high volume pumps, detection, identification and monitoring capability, which a number of our officers form part of, is subject to a whole national capability review. At this point in time, we continue to be engaged with the national user groups and through the National and Strategic Resilience Board, directly with Home Office officials and colleagues from the National Fire Chiefs Council involved in those discussions on the future of the capability. And I think it's fair to say over the last year, some of those conversations have stalled, but they still remain ongoing in the background. No final decision has been reached. So you might remember from the presentation, Kevin outlined a number of options, including different combinations of heavy and light rescue, different combinations of capability and the like. That decision is still to be made. There is a recognition that some form of capability refresh needs to happen, and there's a broad acknowledgement that that would be a Home Office responsibility. But in relation to ongoing arrangements around long-term capability management and also crewing, that's something that is still to be resolved. So please be assured that we remain close to those conversations, and we will update members accordingly as the situation develops.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Stutchbury, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Firstly, congratulations on a successful project and then an exercise. It was impressive to see how you managed to meet all your targets and do what you did. But the question really is, you premised in your answer that they were going to review whether such a robust amount of equipment in the country was necessary. I thought that would be a disappointment after a successful exercise that demonstrated it worked, that you would then review whether you needed it. Because obviously the Buckinghamshire and all the counties are large and the traffic getting from one place is difficult. The other thing is, if 2016 doesn't teach us anything, The review of COVID, which was never the recommendations clearly were never taken forward. It's important that findings from any review is actually taken forward. The positive findings which enhance abilities, not decrease abilities. And I'm worried that out of this exercise shouldn't be used as an exercise to reduce ability. It should be to enhance ability. I know you're not going to be able to say that, but the words you used about whether we need all these equipment, we clearly do. I would want to see a strong report saying you don't need equipment and evidence-based to support it. And that's quite a long question, but it's quite important that these points are made.
That's a difficult one for me to answer, Councillor. Again, I'll have every faith in the review. But yeah, I'd be nice. We would love to keep the USAR capability in its entirety here in Aylesbury for sure.
Can I call on the Chief Fire Officer will respond to that.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. You make a really, really good point, actually. Over the last number of years, the USAR team at Aylesbury has proven its worth both on a local capacity and also a national capacity, filling in for areas that haven't got teams, but also going to national incidents and local incidents. And time after time, they're called out, and they are a fantastic resource, not only for this local community, but for the national community. And the purpose of the exercises is in many ways to show off, in many ways, how good our staff at Aylesbury really are. And I took the point in terms of Councillor McLean's point in terms of the camaraderie between the USAR teams. Others have got good teams, ours is excellent, and we should do every single thing we possibly can in terms of any review and in terms of any consultation to ensure that we keep this resource in Aylesbury, in Buckinghamshire. Every single thing we possibly can. We are close to the review. However, we don't make the final decision. But I think actually in terms of if it would be helpful if all members could sort of cross-party agree that actually this is a resource that should be kept in Buckinghamshire going forward.
Would you
Totally agree. Agree. And enhanced. Thank you for that response.
Councillor Christensen.
Thank you. Just to that point, I was interested in how does the utilisation of our USAR service compare to the other 19? Is that something we know?
It's difficult. Sorry to answer. It's difficult to answer that one.
Dave Norris, would you like to?
Thanks, Chairman. So thanks, Councillor, for the question. So we do have shared with us a range of performance indicators from across the country. But I think it's fair to say that whilst the USAR capability is housed in Aylesbury, it can serve anywhere in the country as part of a whole nationwide response. So it would be difficult to tie down at the moment the number of incidents in service and the number of incidents out of service. We do have that information, and of course we keep our capability under regular review. The other thing I'd like to mention, and it's just on the back of some of the comments already, and I think perhaps going back to Councillor Stutchbury's point, we are also involved in exercises with partner organisations, not just those mentioned today. So back in 2018, we were involved in an exercise with security services and the Ministry of Defence, including some scientific capability. So if we think about the wider contribution that USAR makes across the country's response, not limited to some of the rescues that you saw on scene, perhaps also that gives you some further assurance, in addition to the Chief Officer's comments, that actually how well we are able to respond to that whole range of national response is also kept under regular review, and to which we offer, I believe, a significant contribution.
Thank you. Councillor Marland, do you have a question?
I do, thank you. It is around the same theme really, but it's more around how does the uncertainty around funding and multi-year settlements affect the planning and delivery recruitment of the service, because we all know we're all obviously part of main authorities that are struggling with year-on-year rollovers at the moment, and planning some services is difficult. Does that affect your service? And with the review, there are only 4 zones at the moment. do we even have a direction of travel?
Jason?
Thank you, Councillor Marland. Your question is a good one, actually, because we talk about the urban search and USAR funding every single year, it feels, because it's rolled over, it seems, every single year. So yes, it does affect our planning moving forward. Our current planning assumptions are that we will keep the funding up until at least 2024. If that changes, obviously, we'll bring a paper to the authority. But before we bring that paper, I think that we would have to lobby government to actually say, actually, we need this team in Buckinghamshire. We want to keep this team and look at the fantastic work that they've done. I think any review will, I'm hoping any review won't look at the number of teams, but may look at the equipment involved, actually. You're right in terms of, I think a question's already come up about the age of the equipment from Councillor Hall. There is an equipment refresh needed on this for the USAR team, but looking forward, we would want to keep this team in Buckinghamshire, and I think we've got a track record of showing not only how we respond to incidents, but also how we train not just ourselves, but other agencies nationally across the country.
And also our location.
Yes, perfect.
Which is ideal, I would think. Councillor Lambert, you have a question.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not really a question. It's a statement of probable fact, indeed. Is that we've had USAR in place for quite some time. It's important to note that part of the training development part of it is that they're embedded within the service. They're not standalone like they are in some other services, and that we benefit from that over the period of time. Whenever we go into incidents and things like that, they have that training in their portfolio as well. So we should just put that on the table. They're not just a standalone team; they are integrated.
You want to?
Yes, I can respond on that. Yes. Councillor Lambert is quite right. Our team's shift patterns are different to others across the country. We've had to tighten our belt, if that's the right phrase, over the last number of years in response to austerity and financial measures. And our service and our staff have gone away with that. They work in a very flexible way. They respond in a very flexible way to ensure that actually we maintain the service within this community and within this county and nationally. That's a really good point. Thank you, Councillor Lambert, for raising that.
Thank you. Do you want to sort of wrap up on this item, and then we'll go back to Kevin?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. As we look forward, there are uncertain times, and there've been uncertain times, it feels, for the last 10 years, it feels. However, I think that members can take away from the exercises, the regular exercises that we hold, that actually we've got a fantastic service in terms of what the Urban Search and Rescue team provide. They've been flexible, they've changed how they work, and they continue to look at new ways of working, and also in terms of training other organisations. There's something to be proud of in Buckinghamshire, and something that we should all help to keep as long as we possibly can.
I couldn't agree more. Kevin, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Very well put together. Interesting what you told us, and also with your, dare want to say, your victim who sung your praises. I have to say, I'm sure all members would like to visit and see. Obviously, we've got to take into account, what you're doing, and also, social distancing and whatnot. But if we could put something together where we could come and view, I think that would be really wonderful. But thank you very much indeed. Thank you to your team, and very, very impressive. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for your kind comments, and look forward to welcoming you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye-bye. Right. Agenda item 5 is petitions. Do we have any petitions?
None, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
None, Chairman.
Thank you. We now go back to the agenda pack and agenda item 7. And Councillor Lambert, the lead member for People, Equality, Diversity and Assurance. My goodness, that's a big effort. I think we'll have to do something about that.
Chairman, you added to my title this year.
Well, I think we could perhaps add a bit more. I would hate to even. Yes, I don't think we'll take the. I don't think we'd take the initials of that. Sounds a bit. Anyway, if you. Would you like
the
to?
initials is what you do with them.
Exactly. Would you like to introduce the report, please? And then Jamie Humphrey. Sorry, and Jamie Humphrey, Station Commander of Human Resources Projects, will present the report. So, would you like to lead into it, please?
Thank you very much. Colleagues, this is a bit of a weighty paper that you have in front of us here, and rightly so. We pride ourselves in Buckinghamshire Milton Keynes Fire Rescue on the strength and the character and the very nature of our people, and everything we do has our people at the front end of our decision making and thinking. This is a piece of work that has been going on for some time. And it's a significant piece of work that has, as you can see on page 21 of the agenda pack, it has 5 core areas, but there's plenty of work underneath them. Firstly, I'd just like to pay tribute to the ED&I volunteer group within the organisation, who are right the way across the organisation, who've come together to help us pull together the ED&I, the Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion strategy. The employment engagements teams who have worked with the surveys throughout this time. ODR, the Organisation Development and Resourcing, of course, we've seen papers recently on those as well. Training, learning, development, we heard just a few minutes ago about USAR, but also the continual learning and development programmes that have been put forward and are available on the intranet as well are quite exceptional. Colleagues in the last term of office will know that we had an intranet site set up to encourage learning and development throughout. Plus, also, we're leaders in our fields on the apprenticeship scheme. And lastly, the health and wellbeing aspects of everything that we do with our mental health champions and our constant support for our staff and colleagues is really important. So I wanted to put on record my thanks to all the teams who have come together to pull this piece of work together and to give us a strategy that underpins everything we do, and the reason why we've got such a good rating in last year's HMIFRS report. So thank you very much for everything that we've gone through for the last year to get that done, and everything to bring to this paper today. So thank you. Hopefully, Jamie, I haven't stolen all of your thunder there. But thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. Jamie, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Lambert. Madam Chairman and members, I'm here to present the People Strategy 2020 to 2025. The revised strategy at Annex A has been revised to align to the Public Safety and Corporate Plan and sets out a framework for engaging and developing employees of Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service over the next 5 years. The strategy has been developed through engagement with the lead member of People, Equality, Diversity and Assurance, stakeholders for each key area, trade union rep bodies, and through our own internal employee consultation. The strategy has been updated with the feedback from the consultation process, and this can be found at Appendix 1. The framework maintains the 5 key areas of the previous strategy, just reworded better to reflect our core value statements. Each of the key areas has objectives or a strategy that is woven into the overarching strategy, and these are further expanded in the document. The strategy has been updated to highlight the impacts of the global 19 pandemic. This includes how we continue to adjust to meet the new challenges and opportunities that have arisen in terms of different ways of resourcing and different ways of working. Key updates within the strategy that I'd like to draw your attention to are the signing of the National Armed Forces Covenant and promise to support the Armed Forces community, focus on senior management, talent identification and development, our workforce and succession planning, and the services pledge to continue to increase underrepresented groups at all levels. The written strategy is just the beginning. Over the next 5 years, work will be continue to develop the strategy, and this will be achieved through a communication strategy, employee engagement, whereby making our staff aware of the strategy, signposting, driving and promoting the strategy at every opportunity, measuring success through our output, impacts and benefits, and developing the external public-facing website to further complement the strategy. For example, our recruitment pages and highlighting our achievements. The strategy has been developed to provide flexibility to adapt to our changing circumstances to our staff availability and funding, as outlined in the Corporate Risk Register. And subject to approval, the new strategy will become effective from November this year, succeeding the previous, and published on the service's intranet and public-facing website. Thank you. I'll take any questions.
Councillor Suchbury, you have a question.
Well, firstly, thank you for the document, and I thank Councillor Lambert for the work he's put into this. It's a fine piece of work. You should be proud of it. The only question I have is at the back end of the document where it says equality impact table. Will that be a live document in the sense that we never really know what the next diversity and difficult question is in society? The society is moving forward and we have to be able to adjust to what those requirements are. But I was encouraged, and I felt that it was a balanced document, and it went somewhere. That's the only concern I got, that we make sure it stays a live document and it is able to be amended as and when things come forward, because we don't know in society what the next prejudice is, because we are not experiencing it, and we need to be aware of that and be able to react to it. That's my only question. The rest of it I thought was commendable.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. An answer to your question, we do have equality impact assessments for each of the key five areas that sit under the People Strategy, and these are constantly reviewed moving forward. So hopefully that will answer your question.
The only thing I was saying was we never really know what the next issue is of prejudice or diversity is, because society is moving forward. It's an ever moving question, and it should be in a society, because we should become more inclusive, and that was my premise, that we should recognise that what's today is seen may change, and that's where I'm saying as a live document. It wasn't a criticism, it was a comment.
Thank you, Robin.
Exactly. Sorry, Councillor Lambert. I think that's exactly what was said. It is a living document, and unfortunately, none of us have crystal balls. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think just to give you some assurance there, the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Group, we're constantly horizon scanning, and we are, as an authority, a member of the Asian Firefighter Service, AFSA. We're also, which is an umbrella organisation, which isn't just about Asian firefighters, it is about all forms of diversity and inclusion. We also use ENEI as our partners to constantly test us and help support us developing our EDI strategy. We have a plan that stretches at least 18 months in advance about all types of things that are going on that come to our awareness, and in our regular EDI meetings, there was one on Friday just gone, we do update each other on the latest issues that we're seeing or finding in society, and consider how it is we as a service can reflect the communities that we serve. It is possibly one of the most underrated but most amazing groups of people that come together to help us keep that constant horizon scanning on equalities, diversity and inclusion. It's something I'm immensely proud of as a fire service.
Thank you for that, Stephen. That reassures me.
Dave Norris, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to build on those comments from Councillor Lambert, you did comment, I think yourself, Councillor, that the current strategy that's in front of you has been built on experience over previous years, both learning from the EDI group, as you just heard, the contribution from the learning and development teams, the health and wellbeing boards that we have across the service, both the culture surveys that have been carried out over recent years and some of the significant organisational work that's been introduced on the back of those, and also, of course, learning from our HMIC FRS inspection report. As you'll be aware, with the current circumstances around the pandemic that we've been experiencing since March, that's thrown up some significant challenges for staff, not least working arrangements within the organisation, but of course their health and well-being away from work, and that's something that we're very mindful of and we're very keen to make sure is at the forefront of our thinking. And I would suggest that over the next few years this strategy will probably morph to reflect some of those changes. We do keep the strategy under regular review. It is aligned closely to our corporate planning and our department planning work, and these considerations are something that continue to evolve. I'm fairly confident that we will be able to bring updates back at intervals to the authorities so you can consider progress, but please be assured that this is built into the fabric of what we will be doing over the next few years.
Thank you very much. Can I say thank you to Jamie Humphrey, the Station Commander of Human Resources Projects, for this, and also to you, Councillor Lambert. A lot of work's gone into it, and I think it is a really good document. But if anybody could say interesting reading, it did really, it made you think as you went through it. It was really good. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
So,
Chairman, if I could just
yes.
thank Councillor Lambert as well. That was a very good piece of work, Stephen.
Thank you very much, but I truly am standing on the shoulders of giants of all of the colleagues that have worked with it. So,
Well, if you could go back to your team and just say thank you on our behalf. Really good document, and I understand there's incredible teamwork that's gone on with it, so really good. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, if we go back to page 22, you'll find the recommendations, and I wonder if there are any members that want to vote against or abstain, and if we don't have any against votes or abstentions, we'll take it that the strategy is to be approved and that Appendix 1 is noted. Are there any abstentions? No. No votes against?
That's carried, Chairman.
Thank you. We go to agenda item 8 now, which is on page 43 of the pack. The Fire and Rescue Authorities become statutory consultees in the development management process consultation by the Welsh Government. And I'm going to ask Graham Britton, the Director of Legal and Governance, and also Phil Mould will come in, who's the Greek Commander of Protection, to talk through this report and also to present this report. So could I hand over to you, Mr. Britton?
Thank you, Chairman, members. I'm going to give a précis of my report and then ask Phil Mould, Group Commander, to come in to give the local context towards the end of my presentation. The purpose of this report is to apprise the authority of a consultation launched by the Welsh Government on the 28th of July 2020 about its proposals to make the 3 Welsh Fire and Rescue Authorities statutory consultees on planning applications relating to specified developments. Also, the current position in England in respect of consultation and fire and rescue authorities, and finally proposals for England contained within the draft Building Safety Bill. Responsibility for legislation concerning town and country planning, building regulations and fire safety is devolved to the Welsh Government. The Welsh Government's proposals would require pre-application and post-application consultation with the 3 Welsh Fire and Rescue Authorities by developers and planning bodies for certain types of development. The types of development which would be subject to the requirement to engage with fire and rescue authorities are set out in paragraph 4.15 in the Welsh Government's document, which is at page 63 in the agenda pack. These would be planning applications for development comprising waste sites, comprising 10 residential units or more, or of over half a hectare, buildings with floor space over 1,000 square metres, or sites of 1 hectare or more. The report maps the current legal regime in Wales across to the regime in England. In England, under town and country planning legislation, a fire and rescue authority is only a statutory consultee where a proposed development is what's known as a nationally significant infrastructure project, such as a power station, fuel storage or fuel pipeline, a transport hub, or a highway or a railway, such as HS2. However, there is nothing to preclude local planning authorities from adopting local policies under which fire and rescue authorities could be consulted about planning applications, and as mentioned in the report, the use of non-statutory consultees is endorsed in national planning policy and guidance. Changes to the legislation of the type contemplated in Wales would require the necessary levels of staffing and competency within a fire and rescue authority to enable it to comply with the duty to provide what's called a substantive response within a 21-day period, and also require a fire and rescue authority to publish annual compliance data. In England, councils' building control services or approved inspectors are responsible for checking for compliance and the requirements of building regulations. Building regulations are concerned with building work and with material changes of use, which may give rise to the requirements for building work, such as a major refurbishment. The requirements for fire safety will apply to most buildings. Fire safety requirements are set out in Part B of Schedule 1 to the building regulations. These cover means of escape, means of early warning, internal and external fire spread, and access and facilities for the fire and rescue service. Ways of meeting the requirements are given in statutory guidance issued in England and separately in Wales as approved document B. At present, fire and rescue authorities are consulting on applications for building regulations approval when required under approved document B. The Welsh Government proposals are in response to the Grenfell fire. However, the legislation proposed for Wales is not limited to high-rise residential buildings. In England, a different approach has been adopted. On the 20th of July 2020, the government published the draft Building Safety Bill. The stated intention of the bill is to create a stringent regulatory regime for what's known as higher risk residential buildings, and is part of the government's response to the independent review of building regulations and fire safety led by Dame Judith Hackett. The bill introduces what's known as a building safety regulator, which is a new role to be undertaken by the Health and Safety Executive. The bill would amend the Building Act 1984 to create a new gateway regime for higher risk buildings. Now, for higher risk buildings, the government has signalled its intention that it proposes to define a higher risk building as a building of 18 metres or more above ground level, or in which there are more than 6 stories above ground level, and contains at least 2 or more dwellings, 2 or more rooms for residential purposes, or student accommodation. Clause 3 of the bill enables the building safety regulator to call on the assistance of local authorities and fire risk authorities when regulating higher risk buildings. Clause 14 places a duty on fire and rescue authorities and local authorities to only use staff with the appropriate skills, knowledge, experience and behaviours when supporting the building safety regulator. The bill intends to introduce a gateway process for applications to construct these higher risk buildings. The first gateway is the planning gateway, under which those applying for planning permission will need to submit to the local planning authority with its planning application information that demonstrates fire safety requirements have been considered at an early stage and incorporated into the development's proposals. The building safety regulator will therefore become a new statutory consultee to provide specialist fire safety input on the proposals to assist the local planning authority in their decision-making process. However, where a planning application is not currently required, for example, it is permitted development under the General Permitted Development Order, the requirements of the planning gateway will not apply and development proposals will proceed straight to Gateway 2. The bill proposes that Gateway 2 occurs prior to construction work beginning. It is intended to bolster the current building control deposit to full plan stage. Gateway 2 is intended to provide a hard stop where construction cannot begin until the building safety regulator is satisfied that the building's design meets the functional requirements of the building regulations and does not contain any unrealistic fire safety management expectations. At either or both Gateway 1 or Gateway 2, the building safety regulator can request or direct a fire and rescue authority to provide its employees to give assistance and support. That's a quick précis of the report, and there's a wealth of detail contained in some of the links to the report. But before I hand back to the chairman, I'd like to hand over to Group Commander Phil Mould to talk about the current planning and building regime's impacts on his team's workloads and resources in keeping people safe.
Phil Mould.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Chairman, members. Graham's given a really detailed oversight there of sort of where we are and some proposals for the future. With regard to actually delivering that function, the NFCC have produced a reviewed national competency framework for fire regulators, and consultations falls under the top tier of that qualification. So the aspiration is that only those with the highest level of training, which is level 4 diploma, and external accreditation with an organisation such as the Institute for Fire Engineers. So one of the challenges for the future is maintaining that competency, skills and knowledge and accreditation, and that will be a significant challenge on all fire services. With regard to the actual consultations themselves, we consult on 5 broad categories. One of the first categories is under the Licensing Act 2003, where we receive regular applications and we are consultees on civil partnerships, new premises and clubs, and maybe minor variations. We work closely with the local authority on houses of multiple occupation consultations under the Building Act and the Building Regs 2010. We work with the water authorities under the Water Industry Act. So any new developments, any plans for significant developments, we get the opportunity to state our requirements for water supplies. Under the Town and Country Planning Act, we can be a consultee, and we will consult where we can on those significant developments. As Graham stated, there are some areas we are statutory consultees on, but we will get that early view on planning applications. The main work stream and the biggest workload for our teams is around the building regulation consultations, working under the Building Regs and the Building Act, where we generally process around 1,200 consultations a year. And as you can imagine, over this current pandemic, we have seen a distinct reduction in those consultations being submitted. However, the last month, as we were coming into recovery and businesses opening, we've seen that quadruple in demand. As Graham said, under those consultations, we get to comment on means of escape, emergency and safety lighting, access and facilities for the fire service, notice and signs, and fire alarms and detection. Now, one of the biggest challenges is at this point in the process, we are not the enforcing authority, we are a consultee. Our first opportunity to actually work under the regulations is once the development premises has been built and is occupied. Then we go and inspect the premises to ensure they have actually complied with all of the regulations and the stipulations. I'm happy to leave it there, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. I have a question from Councillor Stutchbury, and I also have Councillor Hopkins would like to ask a question. So, Councillor Stutchbury.
Firstly, thank you for the report. First part of the question is, have we looked at if we were to replicate the Welsh Government's forward-thinking legislation, what would the cost be to the authority, and are we've got resilience to do it? The other thing is the planning and development is changing at pace at the moment, and keeping up with it as a councillor, all the changes in regulations are quite difficult. And we have to be minded to the fact that had something been imposed and a fire authority had powers, tragedies such as in London would not have happened, maybe, because they would have been able to have said, this doesn't meet our requirement, you must do this or else. So I think there's some real value in the firefighter having some strength and rigour. And there also, of course, is a cost. And the legislation is quite complicated. Reading this document's quite complicated and quite long in its knowledge, and it's difficult to understand. So the reason my questions are simply the cost. Simply, if we implement this against current planning, how does it fit in? Because there is now, I understand, with permitted development rights, you can go up to 30 metres. And I listened to your measurements. That means anything up to 30 metres won't quite qualify for a fire inspection. So we are sort of both things seem to be going to disjunction to each other, or maybe I'm overcomplicating it, but that's how I see it. Thank you.
Are you able to answer that question? I think there were several questions actually, which Councillor Suchby is really renowned for doing.
Are you happy to come in there, Graham? I think, yeah, capacity and growing will forever be a challenge, and we are monitoring it, and Graham's paper outlining what is, the research and what is coming in the future is a really, really helpful almost scoping to see what's coming. I think one of the things to not underestimate is the opportunity of being involved in that planning and consultation at the early stages could actually reduce the demands on the teams at the later stages. So currently, if we do consult and the building goes ahead and they accept those comments that we make, but then they don't actually deliver them, it takes a significant amount of time and resources to manage that and get the building safe. So if those powers were a little bit stronger and our consultation, and Graham mentioned that stop point, making sure that they cannot commence until everything is ready and they are compliant, could actually reduce some of our demands in the future. I think, and with your comments on the permitted development, I think whatever the permitted development is, they still have to comply with the fire regulations. So we will still get that consultation. I think that focuses, and I'm happy to be corrected by Graham, much more around the actual planning application side.
Well, thank you for that response. Just, will there be some, regardless of what decision is, will there be some fiscal planning going forward? Because this needs specialist people employed, and that needs a cost, and that needs training and such like. And I think the Welsh Government's probably going in the right direction.
Yeah, so just to reassure, the Fire Authority for the last 2 years has approved additional funding for our protection teams. We have had a slight delay in fulfilling some of those posts due to the restrictions on recruitment and training, and filling those posts. Every service is recruiting for the same posts. So we are recruiting very much staff that are trained. So we are having to put that development in place. So we have started that process. The Fire Authority have supported the funding for that. And yes, and we are continuing to plan, but we need to get those vacancies filled, trained and delivering before we consider any further development in that area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Chair. And I have a question which is related to this topic and is an urgent and related to very much a current situation within Milton Keynes, which I'm going to address to the Chief Fire Officer. With regards to Mellish Court and the Gables in Milton Keynes and the recently completed safety audit reports for both properties, can I ask the Chief Fire Officer and/or a nominated alternative, are the dangers and or risk levels highlighted in the reports sufficient that you would advise that residents be rehoused from both premises at the earliest opportunity?
Hopkins, for your question, and it's right to raise that question in this forum as local representative. If it's okay with you, I'll hand the first part of the answer over to Group Commander Phil Mould, who's been leading on this issue for the service, and then I'll finish off from there. If that's okay, Phil.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for the question, Councillor. So, Blocks Fire and Rescue protection teams have been working hard with the Milton Keynes Council as the responsible persons for the premises. We've seen a significant amount of activity there between the fire service as the regulating authority of the fire safety order and the responsible persons for those that are responsible for maintaining the safety of that building. So we have carried out in-depth audits following the National Fire Chiefs Council framework. We're considering that against the enforcement management model. Part of that includes the significant interim measures that have been put in place by the responsible persons. And obviously any risk assessment that's undertaken will take into account any control measures put in place. These are interim measures and they will be required to be reviewed on a regular basis by the responsible person. The protection teams for the service will continue to liaise and monitor those situations and circumstances and keep it under review. We have a raft of options open to the fire service as a regulator, and those will be kept under constant review.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just to add to that, the Fire and Rescue Service, Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service, employs a range of interventions for the enforcement of fire safety legislation. These interventions range from informal action to formal action, and informal action can include notices suggesting fire safety measures. Formal action can include prohibition of the premises and or prosecution of the responsible person. So when enforcing this legislation, the Fire and Rescue Service will employ these actions and does so and has done so, these different ranges of actions on a regular basis. The person who has responsibility for the writing and implementation of any fire risk assessment. And we will keep this issue under constant review.
Can I just ask the supplementary then that the Chief Fire Officer undertakes to update members of the Fire Authority on a regular basis as and when actions are required to be taken or are planned to be taken, as is fitting with those actions that can be released to the public domain, and to ensure that both the Chairman and the Vice Chair of the Fire Authority in particular receive regular briefings. This is a desperately important topic in Milton Keynes at the moment, as it would be nationally, and the focus is on both Milton Keynes Council and us as the Fire Authority, and we have to ensure that we are being absolutely open and honest and transparent in everything that we do and say.
Just on that, we will treat whether the responsible person is a local authority or a business owner in the community. We will treat every single individual or every single responsible person as a body in exactly the same way, and we'll brief in exactly the same way. We have a track record of enforcement through informal action, and we also have a track record of enforcement through prosecution, and that's a matter for public record. And we will continue to do that and inform councillors as and when these steps are taken.
That's very reassuring. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Mills, you have a question.
Well, it's a comment really, because I've been on the planning committees for some years, and we quite regularly have questions about fire safety. Sometimes on smaller properties, but always with great difficulty if the fire and rescue isn't a statutory consultee. So I'm all in favour of this. It's going to make the change in that, I can't remember who it was, but one of the officers said, we can't go out until the development's been completed. Well, of course, it's too late by then. What we want is earlier intervention so it can be built into the development. So from a practical point of view, yes, I'm all in favour of it.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Mills. Councillor Walsh, Councillor Liz Walsh.
Yes, thank you for your report. As I was reading through it, it did say that the Welsh consultation and the England and Wales consultation, well, the English one, was began because of the Grenfell fire, and I'm not very clear about where the Grenfell inquiry has got to. I know there's been a phase 1 report, but I do believe that evidence is still being taken, and a phase 2 report will be sometime next year. So if you could clarify that for me, I'd be grateful. And I just wondered what the effect of that report and the evidence will have on all this. Thank you.
Callum Bell, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, thank you. And it's a fairly straightforward response from us. The Grenfell incident has been the genesis for a great deal of change, not just in the operational environment, but also in the legislative environment. So in terms of fire safety legislation. So to answer the first part of the question, the Grenfell incident and the subsequent inquiries has triggered drivers for change to a great deal of legislation. The fire safety bill has been going through. Grenfell phase 1 inquiry has concluded, as you rightly say, and phase 2 is underway. And we continue to take an active part, working with the NFCC and other stakeholders and partners in shaping our response, which we have just submitted to back to the Home Office, our response in relation to the fire safety order, the consultation around that. So that is a piece of activity that has many strands to it that we are well embedded within, and as an authority shaping what that looks like moving forward. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm happy to take any more or take that separately if you would like to explore that conversation, that particular topic separately.
Well, I'm just. It is an ongoing. It just keeps on coming, doesn't it? Because I'm just looking at the timetable for taking evidence. I mean, firefighting isn't till ending February 2021. I don't know how up to date my web page is there, but yeah. So that's it's good to hear. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and just to close, we have got our own internal governance around the impacts, not just in legislation, but around operational activities. Around Grenfell, and it's a group I chair, and we meet regularly around that particular topic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to suggest that in the recommendation in little 2 that we add some further wording before I ask if you support it or against or abstain. So the recommendation is, number 1 is the content of the Welsh Government consultation document Annex A be noted, and number 2 is the Chief Fire Officer be authorised, after consultation with the group leaders and Vice Chairman, to submit the views of the group leaders about fire and rescue authorities becoming consultees. I'd like to put statutory consultees to the local planning authority in the development management process to A, the Minister of State for Building Safety Fire Communities and the LGA Fire Service Management Committee. Now, I have been doing some little bits and pieces on both of those. I've been asking Roberta Knox about various things, and we have been discussing about the Fire Authority becoming a statutory consultee on planning, as was suggested, that it is better to be in at the, dare one say, at the groundbreaking rather than when the building is up. And I hope that you will agree that we add that local planning authorities to number 2. And with that, are there any members wishing to vote against or abstain? Yes, Councillor
Chairman, could I
Stutchbury.
hear it again? Could I just hear it again, please? Because it was difficult because in the first section of it, you said about the Welsh Government, you said to note.
Okay, it's number 2. If you look at number 2, yes, it's just we note that.
Okay.
And that will also be used in the letter that we would write saying that we had noted the report, the Welsh report. And then it's the Chief Fire Officer be authorised after consultation with the group leaders and Vice Chairman to submit the views of the group leaders about fire and rescue authorities becoming statutory consultees to the local planning authorities in the development management process. So we want to be. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's you. I'm there. I apologise. I didn't quite get the first section.
Don't worry.
That's fine. I thank you, Chairman.
So, is there anybody against that? Is there anybody abstaining? I take that then that everybody supports those recommendations. Yes?
As amended, Chairman, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, members. I think that probably does start putting things into place. So we now go to agenda item 9, and this is the Public Services Pension Schemes consultation. And Councillor Hopkins, would you like to bring us into this as your lead member?
I will indeed, Chairman, and thank you very much indeed. And my introduction will be very brief because this item is very much to note as the document has actually already been sent. But that doesn't restrict our ability to comment after the event, as it were. I think what I'll do, if I may, is allow Mark to introduce the response in detail. Then I do have one question for him, which I'd like to ask.
Of course.
Once he's finished that.
So I hand over to Mark Hemmings.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Thank you to Councillor Hopkins. Good afternoon, everyone. So as Councillor Hopkins said, this paper is for noting. It covers 2 formal consultations. The deadlines for responses were the 11th of October and the 8th of October. So responses have already been submitted and they were agreed with the chairman and lead member before they were submitted. Now, both the consultations sought views on how best to remedy the firefighters' pension scheme and the local government pension scheme following the MacLeod Sargent ruling. In essence, this found that certain protections offered as part of the transitional from old schemes to new schemes were discriminatory and had to be remedied. The proposal in the local government pension scheme is more straightforward, and it simply removes the age requirement from the underpin qualification criteria during the qualifying period. The firefighters' proposals are more complex in that there are 2 proposals on the table. Essentially, firefighters will have a choice as to whether they remain in their legacy scheme or transfer into the new scheme during the transition period, which runs between 2015 and 2022. The proposals are that they have to either make this choice immediately or they have a deferred choice whereupon they make the choice to which scheme they want to be in when they retire. So 2 very different proposals in there which we're asked to propose and consult on. In terms of the proposals, we didn't express a preference for either option. We've been fairly neutral in that respect. Our approach essentially has been to highlight the implications for the authority of both choices, and that there will be additional costs in terms of administration and almost certainly higher employer contributions, and making representations that these should be funded by central government and it shouldn't be a burden on a local council taxpayer. As an example, when the new firefighter scheme was introduced in 2015, because it came with lower employer contributions, our grant was top sliced at the time, so we had funding removed. Now it's almost certainly going to increase in cost. We're very strongly making representations that we should get that funding back that we've had removed from us. As part of this, we've also stressed the need for clear guidance to support both employers and members of both pension schemes, because they are becoming increasingly complex, increasingly burdensome. So that guidance is really essential for everyone involved to make sure that employers follow the guidance clearly and the employees can make the best decisions regarding their future pensions. I appreciate that the paper's very heavy, there's lots to digest there, But I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions that members may have.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yes, thank you, Mark. The papers are indeed very heavy, and good luck to anybody who read them all through in one go. I think our primary ambition is to ensure that obviously no member of the pension schemes are in any way disadvantaged. But I did note at the weekend that the LGA, I think last Friday, had published a response which was generally neutral. Our response was generally neutral in regard to the two options, whilst the LGA rather preferred the deferred option response. So I wondered, why do you think the LGA felt that way, and they felt that was the best option, and what are the pros and cons, and what the likely effect on the service of all of this is likely to be going forward?
Okay, that's a good question, and yes, well noted, good point. LGA did express quite a clear preference for the deferred option. I think that overriding basis for that opinion was that was the option they felt mitigated the risk of any future legal challenge. One of the things they noticed that if there was an immediate choice exercise, not all members are massively engaged in pensions, especially the younger ones, and they may not engage and make that immediate choice. And you have issues of, okay, which scheme they go in by default? There's potential challenges there. The consultation also notes that immediate choice is irrevocable. So once you've decided which scheme you're in, that's it, you're stuck in that. Members in future may then decide, oh, actually, I wasn't given clear information at the time. That might represent a further legal challenge. And making the immediate choice is more difficult the further you are away from retirement as well. So in their opinion, it disadvantaged younger members of the scheme more than older members. And again, that may give rise to legal challenge. In terms of the disadvantage of the deferred choice, it's the uncertainty which that brings for the employer in terms of being able to value the schemes and set employers' contributions. And it means you'd have to keep dual sets of records for potentially decades in some cases. And if a member makes a different choice to the one that you budgeted for, there's potentially lots of retrospective contributions going backwards. And it just adds even more complexity to what is already a very complex scheme, unfortunately. The overall impact on the authority of either scheme is the amount of administration, amount of resource we're going to have to put into it is going to have to increase even further over the next couple of years, whichever choice is made.
Right. Do you have a supplementary?
No, I think that answers the question. I'd only comment that if Stephen's standing on the shoulders of giants with regards to his item, I'm standing on the shoulders of King Kong on this one. I'm hugely out of my depth, so if it wasn't for Mark, I'd be drowned.
Sorry, say that again. Councillor Lambert.
I'm just grateful it's not in my portfolio anymore. As it was many years. Thanks, David, for the team.
So who provides the guidance, Mark? You know, will that be down to the authority, or will that be something that will be led by government?
It's something we're pushing government to lead on. It's difficult in the firefighters scheme because you have 45 different administering authorities. So what we don't want to do is have one authority interpret it one way, a different authority interprets it a different way, because that again leaves you open to challenge. So we're asking for clear guidance to come from the Home Office. We're also supported by the Local Government Association, who employ 2 pensions advisors. We pay a levy towards those, so they advise all authorities, and we're further supported by our pensions administrators. We just have to be very careful in that we can't provide advice to members of the schemes because we're not financial advisors. All we can do is kind of point in the direction of the administrators who provide the advice on our behalf.
Thank you very much. Councillor Statutory, you have a question.
Thank you. We all know historically any changes in pensions in up and down the country has been plagued with secondary faults, in the sense that people who move find out they aren't where they are. You said that the fire authority can't advise and the second organisation can advise. You stated in earlier, didn't you, about the problems of the young people to older people in the pension scheme, and now the recognition that you're going to get old one day isn't obvious when you're young. We've all been there, done that one. But I do think that, how do we know they're going to get the advice, and is there going to be some audit that they do? Because this is a once in a lifetime choice, and they're making this choice not only for themselves but for their wives or partners, and there is a financial drag for them. They need to be assured that they've got some proper independent advice. Anyone who's sought independent advice, that usually comes with a cost, and how you recruit that cost, you've got to pay for it. What measures to be put in place to give them a scope of advice? Because if you're a young person and you're told it's going to cost you 25, 30, 40, 50 pounds for some independent advice, and you've got 40 years of work left in you, you're probably not going to spend the 40 pounds. Nature says it. So how are we going to be assured that we do put that in so that the decision is correct and we don't have future firefighters retiring in a worse financial state than they would have been if they'd acted correctly? That's the real crutch of our problem, is we want to make sure that they are. And lastly, what role does the union have in this, in offering some independent advice?
Okay, you raised some very good points there, Councillor Stutchbury, and I think it's a very real risk that you raise, and I think that's why the LGA are pushing for the deferred choice, is because younger members, as you say, less likely to engage. If they have to pay for independent advice, they're less likely to do so because they're thinking that's kind of 20, 30 years down the line. I'll worry about it then. So I think the LGA suggestion is very sensible, in my personal opinion. What we can do is provide staff with as many updates and as much communication as possible to keep them apprised of what's going on and where to seek advice if they need to. We use West Yorkshire Pension Fund, who I think now provide the administration service for, I think, approximately about 15 of the 45 fire authorities. So they do have a wealth of expertise and a very good kind of website, lots of kind of self-service things where people can go and look at indicative quotes, etc. So they do provide a very good service, and we always point people in the direction of them. And we do encourage people to take independent advice where possible. And we do also have retirement planning sessions where we'll bring in an external expert to provide kind of that advice that we can't legally provide to staff. And we'll facilitate that so they've always know where they can go to if they do need that advice. But I kind of accept your point. It is a real risk, and we want members to make the best decisions for themselves and their families.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. We come to the recommendation, which is on page 72. And I'm going to ask again if anybody is going to vote against or abstain. But the recommendation is that that the responses to the consultation be noted. Are there any people voting against? Any abstentions?
That's carried, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Because we've agreed that the minutes of the exempt session from our previous meeting, there were no comments, I can say thank you very much indeed for attending the meeting. Thank you very much indeed for the positive questioning. Thank you very much to officers that fielded those questions. And may I
Madam Chairman,
say to you, yes, who's Madam?
It's Keith McLean, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I did send you a note yesterday about an update on the matters.
You did, and I'm going to get a written response to you. Because we're not going into exempt, we cannot respond to that question. So I was going to give you a call straight afterwards. So we are going to sort that out, Councillor McLean. Other than that, so can I say thank you very much indeed for attending today. Thank you very much indeed to all the officers. Thank you very much to IT, because I know that we were sitting sort of, but thank you, IT. And can I just say stay safe, be careful, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Is the broadcast finished?
Just after the take.
Yeah.